Hey everyone, welcome class. Today, we're diving into the absolute magic, well, actually the fascinating physics behind the optical illusions that happen right in front of our eyes. This explainer is all about the refraction of light at curved surfaces. Consider me your teacher for the day as we break down this entire chapter. We're going to keep things super basic, highly visual, and completely tied to stuff you've probably seen a million times.
To kick things off, I want you to think about something you probably interact with every day: curved glass. Think about a watch repairer looking through that tiny little magnifying glass to see those intricate gears, or just everyday reading glasses. Have you ever actually rubbed your fingers across the glass in a pair of spectacles? Ask yourself, is it perfectly flat, or does it curve? And if it curves, is it thicker right in the middle or thicker out at the edges? Trust me, those physical differences are the absolute foundation of everything we're about to cover.
Now picture this physical mystery. You drop a spoon into a glass of water, and right at the surface, the spoon looks completely snapped in half. Why is that? Or here's another one. If you plop a lemon into a tumbler of water and look through the side, it suddenly looks massive. Is it a giant, mutant lemon? No way. It's just light playing tricks on us. Let's figure out how.
So, here's our syllabus for this explainer. 1. The magic of curved glass. 2. Anatomy of a surface. 3. Rules for bending light. 4. Meet the lenses. 5. Where's the image? And 6. The math behind lenses.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1. The magic of curved glass, real-world illusions.
We're starting with a physical phenomenon you can literally test in your kitchen right now. Whenever light crosses a boundary between two transparent materials, something pretty special happens. Let's say you draw a little arrow on a sticky note and look at it through a totally empty glass tumbler. You'll see a diminished or shrunken image of that arrow. That's because the light is traveling through air, into the curved glass, into the air inside the cup, and out again. But fill that glass with water, and boom! Suddenly the arrow isn't just smaller, it completely flips upside down. The water acts as a denser medium, creating this curved interface between the air and the water that totally rewrites the rules of how those light rays bend.
Moving right along to Section 2, Anatomy of a Surface, Mapping the Curve.
To really solve these optical mysteries, we kind of need to agree on some vocabulary. Let's map this out. Imagine a curved glass surface isn't just a curve, but a slice cut out of a giant invisible sphere. If you draw a line from the dead center of that imaginary sphere directly to the curved surface, that becomes what we call a normal line. This dashed line is absolutely crucial. According to Snell's law, it's the exact reference line that dictates how the incoming light is going to bend when it smacks into the curve.
So let's nail down our key landmarks. We've got the pole, marked as P, which is the exact center of our curved surface. Then there's the center of curvature, or C, which is the center of that giant imaginary sphere we just talked about. And finally, the principal axis. This is just the straight line connecting P and C. Honestly, think of the principal axis as our main highway. It gives us a solid, reliable reference line for measuring absolutely everything we do from here on out.
Which brings us to Section 3, Rules for Bending Light, Navigating the Curves.
All right, so how does light actually behave when it hits these different optical speed bumps? Just like hitting a flat window, light bends towards that normal line when it moves from a rarer medium, like air, into a denser one, like glass. But here is where the curve works its magic. If the surface is convex, meaning it bulges outwards towards you, the normal lines point inward, forcing the light rays to converge and meet at a single spot. But if it's concave, caving inwards, the normal lines point outward, which makes the rays scatter and diverge away from each other.
Now pause right here. You are definitely going to want to keep this cheat sheet handy. These are our sign conventions, and they are your master key for keeping the math organized. Think of it exactly like an XY graph in algebra. Your pole is your 0 point. If you measure in the direction the light is already going, that's positive. If you measure against the traffic of the light, it's negative. Up is positive, down is negative. Super simple, but absolutely critical.
Okay, on to Section 4. Meet the lenses, tools of refraction.
So we know how one curved surface bends light, but what if we trap a transparent piece of glass or plastic between two curves? You get a lens. If your lens bulges out on both sides, that's a biconvex lens. Thick in the middle, thin at the edges, just like a standard magnifying glass. It pulls light together. On the flip side, a biconcave lens curves inward on both sides, thin in the middle, thicker at the edges, which pushes parallel light beams far apart.
Now, when that biconvex lens pulls all those parallel light rays together, they crash into each other at a very specific traffic intersection.
We call that the focal point. And the distance from the dead center of the lens to that meeting spot, that is your focal length, represented by a little f. The cool thing is, no matter where you place an object in front of it, a specific lens will always have the exact same focal length, as long as it stays in the same surrounding air or water.
Next up, Section 5. Where is the image? Tracking the projection.
So how do we predict where an image is actually going to pop up? Check out the pattern here. As you move an object closer and closer to a biconvex lens, the real image on the other side gets pushed further away and gets bigger and bigger. But look at that bottom row. If you move the object so close that it crosses the focal point, the image suddenly flips right side up. It becomes a virtual magnified image. That's literally the science of holding a magnifying glass right up against a tiny font to read it.
But hey, you don't even need to memorize that table. You can just draw it. Follow these 3 simple steps for a ray diagram and you'll never have to guess. Step 1. Draw a ray straight from your object, parallel to the axis, and bend it right through the focus. Step 2. Draw a second ray slicing straight through the absolute center of the lens, the pole, without bending it at all. Step 3. See where they cross. Where those 2 lines intersect is the undeniable geometric proof of where your image is going to form.
All right, final stretch. Section 6. The math behind lenses. Unlocking the formulas.
We've seen it, we've drawn it, now let's ground it in some math. Don't let these letters freak you out, it's honestly just a recipe. This formula links together the density of your 2 materials, like air, which is N1, and glass, N2, with the object's distance, the image's distance, and the radius of your curve. If you just plug in your numbers, remembering those positive and negative rules from our cheat sheet, you can calculate precisely what's going to happen. Combine 2 of these surfaces together mathematically, and you get the exact formula opticians use to craft your eyeglasses.
And remember that giant lemon from the start of the class? This right here is why. Magnification is just the image height divided by the object height. But mathematically, that's also equal to the image distance divided by the object distance. Because the curved water glass pushes the virtual image of the lemon so far away, the math basically demands that the image gets way taller too. It's just geometry at work.
To wrap up this explainer today, I've got a little pop quiz for you, a sort of final exam to see how we're tracking. Check this out. Imagine a biconvex lens built from 3 completely different transparent materials stacked like a layer cake. We know that different densities bend light differently, right? So if each of these layers bends light at a different angle, how many separate focal points would this one lens produce? And if you looked at a single light bulb through it, how many different images would you actually see? I'm going to leave you to ponder that puzzle. Keep looking closely at the everyday magic around you, and I'll catch you next time.